Hey, what's up, guys? Build the universe. And I know this is really random, but I want to start doing charts of people who lived a long time ago. Because I'm just like, they're people too. Dead people were people too. And and also, they changed the world dramatically, just like people today do. So why shouldn't they get the rep? So yeah, I was watching an entire documentary on eugenicism and stuff like that, and I thought it was really interesting. And I've always known who Margaret Sanger was, but I never was so clear on it. And so did watch a little bit about Margaret Sanger. Of course, out of the whole 2 hour documentary, they only gave her a good 20-30 minutes. But I actually went on Amazon. I bought a couple of her books, and I think I bought another book about her. So I'm actually pretty interested in learning more about her. If you don't know who she is the founder of certain groups which later became Planned Parenthood. I forget what the original title was called, but it was kind of morbid sounding. I can't remember what it was called. I already forgot. But they were like, yeah, that kind of sounds a little elitist, or a little bit morbid. Something about dead babies. I forget. Let's change it. So she merged with like another group, and then they called it Planned Parenthood. But she's a eugenicist. She was a eugenicist. And that is the act of sterilizing certain people so that they cannot have children because they possess certain unwanted traits that aren't worth passing down, that make the person the carrier of these traits. It makes it not even worth it for them to have children. So she was an advocate of that. And she's also accused, and that's why I bought some of her books that she wrote, and then some books that were about her. But there's plenty of evidence supporting that she was using eugenicism as a means of racism, basically, just like Hitler was. But the thing is that Hitler was racist. Like that's a no-brainer. He was openly racist. He did not like anybody that was less than what he thought was the perfect ideal. And so, Margaret Sanger, she was the same way, except that Margaret Sanger at least was a nurse. So it's like maybe she's got some far out ideas. And, until I read her work, which I'm about to when the book comes, I don't want to make any judgments like that. But at least at least she's coming from experience. I feel like people like Hitler and even other actual eugenicists who were doctors and scientists, they were not coming from a place of working with patients, because so many doctors actually, they do work with patients, obviously, but not in the way nurses do. Nurses take care of that everyday, all day stuff. Sometimes doctors will come in, you already know, sometimes doctors only come in for a couple of minutes just to really see and then talk to the nurse, and then they kind of make a game plan, and then they go back and do their rounds, and then the nurse go back to supporting you. So nurses have a real hands-on career when it comes to patients. And I mean, y'all know all this stuff. Nurses are the bomb. Nurses are the OG superheroes. So it's like, what's up with this girl? It's like, yeah, she's got some far out ideas, but at the same time, it's not like she's coming from conjecture. She's obviously coming from experience. So what's going on here? So I wanted to look at her chart. First thing I thought was, if there is if she is a nurse, and if she was a good one, that there's going to definitely be some sixth house stuff, or there's going to be some Virgo stuff. So she does have Mercury in Virgo. Before I even get to that, because there's a lot to do there, I want to say that Mercury and Moon in general deal with caring for people. So if you have a lot of Moon in your chart, if you're a Cancer in some way, or if you have a Moon Nakshatra in one of your luminaries, if you have a lot of Moon Nakshatras in your chart anyway, then that can make you more viable to be a caregiver, to be good with children, to work with the more helpless, the more innocent of society. Because, Moon is the mother, and mother is maternal. Mother is offering their love as part of their job. Mothers are patient and kind and love and warm. So, anytime you see moon or and Mercury is young and educated. So you see a lot of Mercury in education. So yeah, wherever you see a lot of moon or a lot of Mercury, you can assume that they either work with someone or work with young people, or they're very youthful themselves, or they work in some type of service industry like nursing. So she's a Mercury, I mean, she's a Virgo Mercury, but she's also a Cancer moon. So um, Cancer is the moon. Can't, so that means that it is taking care of people. And the other thing is she's also a Cancer ascendant. So she's a Cancer moon, Cancer ascendant with her. That means her moon is in her first house. Can you get any more fucking moon than that? Than being a Cancer ascendant, Cancer moon with your moon in the first house. So, I mean, that's triple moon energy. That actually makes her incredibly intuitive. It makes her very feminine. It makes her very good at doing feminine jobs. It doesn't have to be exactly a nurse. She could have been a teacher. She could have been a writer. She was a writer. She could also have been an artist. She could have been someone who was brought up in a well-to-do type of household, or she was like very taken care of as a child. Kind of like, even if it wasn't so much emotionally, then it was very financially. Usually moon kids are pretty spoiled growing up. Usually moon kids have a lot of more resources, whether emotionally or financially, growing up than other planetary children. So like Saturn kids get it the worst as kids. But moon kids are generally well taken care of, especially by mom. And they just have a lot more opportunity. They'll usually have parents who provide them with a more of a more satisfying childhood. So that's definitely interesting. The other thing was, I thought she was pretty. It's hard to tell what beauty is back in the day. Beauty actually for me is subjective. What's pretty today is not pretty tomorrow, or it wasn't pretty yesterday. You know what I mean? So I think she was pretty, and it doesn't surprise me that she is a moon, Cancer ascendant. She's an Aslesha ascendant. The only person I can think of on the top of my head that's an Aslesha ascendant is Kiki Palmer. She's another very pretty girl. The astrologer Claire Nocti, she pointed out that a lot of Venus people are so wrapped up around perfection, or can be so wrapped up around perfection, that it can manifest in different toxic ways. One way is that you can be incredibly OCD, which the only OCD people I know are Venus people. And the most OCD person I know is a double V. She's a Venus moon, Venus sun. And now that I think about it, another doctor I know who's brilliant, who's a Venus moon, Venus sun, and he has issues. The other way it'll manifest in a bad way, if Venus is too obsessed of perfection, is they'll become bulimic. They'll have a type of body dysmorphia. They'll be anorexic. What's her name? Ariana Grande is a Venus ascendant. She's a Purvashada ascendant. So that's another thing. And she's a Hasta moon. She's a moon woman as well, and she was also very taken care of, like I was mentioning about moon children. And then the other way Venus will manifest in a negative way in the pursuit of perfection is, I hate to say this. Oh, before I get to the last one, the third way is they'll be very depressed, because it's like they'll achieve great heights. They'll have perfect bodies. They'll be so beautiful. They'll be so talented, so smart. But then nothing is like giving them satisfaction, because they're always on that pursuit for the next high, for the next chase, so they can actually get depression from that. And it was also pointed out to me, this is all information I got from Claire Nocti's video on Venus people, so you should go watch it. This information right here I definitely get from her. and and so it can also lead to depression to the point of suicide. So she was pointing out that a lot of suicide victims are Venus people, which I thought was very interesting. Now the last one, the last way that Venus will manifest in a negative way through the obsession of perfection is you'll get highly racist people. People who don't see other people as even worth living, or they see them as people with defects and that really shouldn't be around. That we should live in some type of like master race, some type of purified higher race. And so, Hitler was a Purvashada moon. He was a Venus moon, and this lady, Margaret Sanger, is a Cancer Venus. So if she's a Cancer ascendant, that means that she has her Venus in her first house. So she has her moon and her Venus in her first house. So that means that in many ways she's incredibly feminine, which makes sense because she was a nurse. This would lead me to believe that she was a very successful nurse. That she had a very, very good bedside manner. I don't think that she would have done anything vile or sneaky with her patients. I don't see anything like that. To be honest, that would have been like Rahu or Scorpio. She has no Rahu, no Scorpio. So I think that's pretty interesting, except for her Rahu is conjunct her sun. I'll get to that in a minute. Which actually is a pretty... Okay, never mind. She has Rahu. But anyway, yeah, so Venus people apparently... I'm not very Venus, so I wouldn't know. But apparently Venus people can have issues with race, I think that's very interesting. Interesting. Anyway, the other thing that makes her... The other thing that can make her a really, really good writer, and she did write a lot of books. And the other thing is, when I was looking at the documentary about Margaret Sanger, I actually realized that, controversial or not, evil or not, whatever you may say about her, whatever you may believe, whatever may be true about her, one thing I definitely noticed is that she's a smart lady. She's definitely intelligent, and her Mercury is in Hasta. That's the highest potential point for Mercury. Mercury does the absolute best in Virgo, which is actually interesting because Sattvic planets generally don't do well in the sixth house, but Mercury does do well in Virgo, which is very interesting. Hasta is a moon nakshatra in Virgo. So Hasta is a star within Virgo. And when your Mercury is in Hasta, you have great deduction skills. You have great, what's that word? When you separate. What's that? Segregation skills. And which is very fucking interesting because as Americans, we grew up thinking of segregation. We think of the 1960s. We grew up thinking of the civil rights movement. But really, segregation, and this has everything to do with Virgo. That has everything to do with removing things you need from things you don't need from the things that you do need, which is exactly what the intestine does. The intestines pick apart your nutrients and clings to that, and it pushes down the rest. And Virgo rules the intestines. So that's what Virgo's talent is picking apart things, getting rid of the waste, only keeping what's absolutely necessary. And so that's a very, very deductive, logistic talent. So Virgo is very much like that. But the thing is very interesting, is that she seems to be using her talent for segregating to the next level. And it's crazy because she doesn't exactly have debilitated planets. She's got Sun in Leo. That's Mula Trikona for Sun. She's a Cancer moon. That's its own sign. She's Mercury, Virgo Mercury. That's I forget that word. That's exalted point for Mercury. Cancer Venus. That's a great part. I mean, she's got good placements, so it's interesting that, I don't know, it's just that it's her chart's a good chart. It's a good chart. It doesn't suggest evilness or anything like that, but it does suggest someone who's really smart. And I'll tell you, this whole, um, she's got she's got Rahu, Jupiter, and her sun conjunct. But her Rahu has the lowest degree. Her sun has the highest degree. Jupiter has the middle degree. When you have conjunctions, whatever holds the lowest degree will tend to be the more powerful, will tend to have the last say. Well, if you have if you have Sun, Rahu, and Jupiter conjunct, okay, first of all, Rahu and Jupiter conjunct, I don't like that because that can actually make you a fake teacher. That's like the same as having Rahu in Sagittarius or Rahu in Pisces, because those are both Jupiter Rashis. And Rahu is obsessive, and Rahu is about looking like you're something. It's not actually being something, it's more looking like you're something. So it's interesting. So that's why I say it could be not just a fake teacher, but also can be a fake spiritual teacher. And the fact that it's conjunct her sun means that this is the light that she shines every day. The sun is your ego. So the sun is going to egotistically augment its light on its Jupiter, which is the planet of spirituality and higher thinking. And we did see that. She was a very smart woman. She's probably a very educated woman too. She probably, and it's all in Leo. That means that she was a great performer. She might have had artistic ability. She very well might have had artistic ability. And her son is an Uttara Falguni. That's a very, very, very pioneering, brave star. They are not afraid to make enemies in the pursuit of their truth. But at the same time, Rahu right there is gonna first of all, it can make you a very creative person. It can make you an attractive person. It can make you a wealthy person, and it can make you a sexual person. So actually, Rahu conjunct your sun. In many ways, it can make you a really successful person in life on this earth. It can make you a very creative person. But on the downside, like, people see one thing, but actually, you have a more sinister side. So, and the fact that this is all sitting in her second house of the home life, this kind of means that she kind of got these ideas from her home. So she's got Jupiter and Rahu in the second house. Yeah, so that means that maybe either spirituality was really, really pushed in her house, or education was really, really pushed in her house. And it might have also, because it's Sun and Rahu there as well, like, Sun is very proud, and then Leo wants to show off anyway, and then Rahu wants to be seen, and Rahu is shameless about it, So it's like, I don't know, there's kind of some toxic traits there. It's like Jupiter and Leo can be wonderful. Jupiter and Leo can be absolutely great. But the fact that you got Sun conjuncted, they're put some ego on there. And then you got Rahu there, then it could just flat out make you a liar about who you say you are. So it's very interesting. How many minutes is 18 minutes? Wow. That's very interesting. But yeah, I'm actually interested to read more about Margaret Sanger. I think she's pretty interesting. The other thing I think that's really interesting to note is that she has her Mars in the 11th house. When you have your Mars in the 11th house, that means that it can mean that you fight for groups. And she did. She fought for women. She fought for all types of marginalized groups. I was just looking at the documentary that when she was starting her Planned Parenthood, she made all these flyers and she translated them in Yiddish, Italian, I think German or Polish, something like that, because she was in New York, and she planted them everywhere. And her soft spot was marginalized women. But apparently with this Venus in the first house and with Rahu conjunct her sun, conjunct Jupiter, I don't know. That kind of does mean that there's some, like, something a little bit more sinister behind those intended actions and words, you know. And Moon in the first house, first of all, Venus in the first house can make you a racist. It can make you obsessed with. It can give you OCD. It can make you obsessive compulsive disorder. It can make you obsessed with perfectionism, you know, whether with yourself or with your others. And then Moon in the first house. Actually, Moon in the first house. I know this is an off thing, but it can make you a little bit of an alcoholic. It can make you love to drink. Moon in first house, a lot of fucking people can drink a lot, man. It could also, Moon in the first house can give you, I don't know, I don't want to say, but it can give you like a bipolar disorder ish, because Moon waxes and wanes. So it's, and the fact that it's sitting in your first house, that means it's like there's a bit of unstableness. But I already deviate from my last point. Mars in the 11th house. Mars in the 11th house can mean that you fight for groups, basically, is what I'm saying. And she did. She definitely fought for certain groups, which is women. And it was Mrigashira, too. It's a Mars nakshatra. So her Mars was really fierce. Her Mars was definitely very charged, which I think is very interesting. And the fact that it was Taurus is so feminine. They say that Taurus is actually the most feminine sign. So take it where you leave it. You know, if she's got her 11th house in Taurus and her Mars is in Mrigashira, that means that she fought for very feminine groups, which she did. She fought for women. So that makes total sense. All right, that's enough. Bye.